A friend of mine asked me recently, she said her mind races all night, and she lies awake ruminating over the state of global affairs, which is actually understandable, right? So she asked me if I had any ideas for what she should do, and I did, so I wanted to share them here too. The first thing I encouraged her to do was, not encourage her, I told her, the rest of this won't work if you don't at least bear with me on this first point. You gotta try on the belief, just experiment with believing that you do have the power to feel better than you do right now, that you do have the power to choose your thoughts. I shared with her, this is a friend for context who has called me creepily happy. Which is kind of a badge of honor for me. I mean, this is my house. It's a little fluorescent. She's not wrong. But I had to share with her a secret of happy people, which is that stuff happens to us too. We've had tough childhoods too. We wake up feeling a certain kind of way some days. People say sideways stuff to us too. We see the same headlines that y'all see. I worked in health and fitness for many years, and the studies show that people make hundreds of food decisions a day. I think we make thousands of thought decisions a day. And one thing I know, the secret of happy people that I shared with her, is that even when stuff happens to us, even when we see what's going on, we choose very intentionally hundreds or thousands of times a day to focus on, and sometimes just to only see, to selectively exercise our attention and focus it on the things that make us feel good. Now, these thoughts don't always feel to most people like decisions. They don't feel voluntary, right? They feel like they're out of your control because they're habits. Thoughts are habits. They're just habits that we've practiced over and over again, things that we've thought over and over again. You can make habits out of practicing choosing good feeling thoughts and good feeling things to focus on too. Okay, it is a novel way to think about our emotions though. So the first step to controlling your racing thoughts and stop your mind from racing is to just try on the belief that you actually have the power to do that. The second piece of advice I had for her was that in order for her to control her racing thoughts, she's gonna have to make a decision that feeling better than she feels right now is more important to her than facing what someone says is reality or seeing what's true. Okay? Like, let's get really real here. When we have a pattern of thought like worrying, we're doing that because we get some payoff out of it, especially if it's a long standing pattern. So you have to get real with yourself about what you get out of telling the same old stories over and over again about why you worry, or what your worries actually are. Are you attached to being unhappy? And I'm not talking about people who have like clinical chemical depression. I'm talking about people who have a chronically depressed mood. In order to move past that state of constant worry and mind racing, you have to get real with yourself about what payoffs you're getting out of that worry, that pattern. Is it part of your identity? Are you afraid of who you really are underneath? Is it the way that you bond with other people? I know many people, many families who have a style of bonding wherein what they talk about with each other is their worries, their grievance about the world. Are you afraid people won't like you or love you if you show them who you are beneath the worry? Are you afraid that you won't like you or love you if you figure out who you are beneath the worry, or if you let the worry go and see who you are beneath? And then once you have gotten to the place where you've made a decision that feeling better than you feel right now is more important than facing reality or telling the same old stories, you got to cut it out. Stop telling the same old stories about why you're unhappy. I have a friend who is a brilliant woman, and she has a rule. She'll let herself tell the same story about why she's unhappy about something 3 times, and that is a wrap. After the 3rd time, she has to come up with some other way to describe it if she wants to talk about it at all. So what that means is she ends up not talking about it, or she ends up reframing it. And the reframe of a story about why you're unhappy tends to always be a little more powerful, a little more empowering than the original sad tale. And remember here, this is all about deciding that feeling better is more important to you than whatever the payoffs are you're getting out of feeling bad. It's not necessarily about deciding that you're going to feel blissful. right? Some people try to go from feeling really bad for 40 years to feeling bliss the next day. That is a heck of a journey to try to take your nervous system on. Just decide that feeling better than you do now is more important than the payoffs you're getting out of feeling bad, and get real with yourself about what those payoffs are. Now, the third piece of advice I gave her for how to stop her racing thoughts was a weird one, but I think a necessary step. And it is this: you have to allow yourself to have the racing thought experience. You have to be able to say, you know what? My thoughts are racing. My mind is racing. And it's all right. It's okay. It is what it is. The more you put energy into hating that your mind is racing, the more you embroil yourself and entangle yourself in a struggle with yourself about your mind being racing or the worries that you have. Have you ever tried to stop yourself from thinking something? In the practice of trying to stop yourself from thinking something, all you do is think about that thing. You fixate even more on that thing. You invest more energy, more focus on that thing, and that thing grows in your awareness. Those worries will grow, right? So there's a necessary early step to stopping your racing thoughts. That's just to say to yourself, it's all right. It's okay. It is what it is. This worry is here, and it is what it is. It's okay. And you'll find just in the energy of saying that to yourself in your own mind that you create so much space. You give your heart a little space. You create a little space around that knot in your chest and in your mind. And in that space, you relax, and you recoup all the energy out of that struggle. And then you can use that energy into taking action and doing other things that can help rehabilitate your thought patterns from worry to something else. Dr. Henry Cloud is one of my favorite teachers, and he uses this phrase, decathexis. Cathexis is the investment of time and energy and effort and fire and life force into something, anything, an occupation, a pursuit, a project, a thought pattern, a relationship. Decathexis is when you stop doing that thing and you get this whoosh of energy back. So when you stop the struggle, not when you stop the worry, before you even can stop the worry, when you stop the struggle against the worry, decathexis happens. You get this incredible rush of energy back to you. You start experiencing some relief. So that's step 3, is to actually allow yourself to have the racing mind experience. Now, the next few steps are kind of rapid fire actual action items. Step 4 is to actually get out into nature. Take a walk, sit by a stream, go to the park. If you can put your feet on the dirt, your bare feet on the dirt, you'll find that to be very energetically grounding, because the energy of worry is a very ungrounded energy. A friend of mine, a holistic healer, taught me this, to put my feet in the dirt when I was traveling a lot. I'm feeling really scattered and energetically all over the place, and it works. If you can, I say hug a pug because I'm a pug parent, but if you can pet a dog or cuddle your cat, any of those things are actually scientifically proven to bring your heart rate down and your blood pressure down. So they work. Another suggestion I have for you is to work out, and if you can, work out hard. Again, that energy is flying around. It's crazy. If you can get some hard cardio in, go for even a 1-mile run, but run fast. If you can if you're at home and it's at night, do some push-ups, do some kettlebell swings, use your jump rope, do whatever you can, run up and down your stairs, dissipate some of that energy. It's helpful. I find that in times when I tend to worry a little bit more, if I make my regular workouts a little more intense, work out a little bit longer, a little bit harder, it helps with, the thoughts at night. One thing that I want to share with you as you're trying to live out this process is a strategy that Mark Hansen calls taking in the good. He writes and talks a lot about how our human brains were wired and attuned for negative, scary, and dangerous things in like the plains of the Serengeti. Because we no longer, most of us, face that level of danger on a day-to-day basis, we kind of stay in nervous system high alert. So he encourages us to take in the good. And that's one of the strategies that I give you. If your mind is racing all through the day, every day, watch for moments where you feel really good, moments where you feel real resonance, activities where you're actually doing something that's making you feel really calm and really grounded, conversations that you have, beautiful occurrences, graces that come to you. And do two things. One, take it in. Sit with it for at least 20 seconds if you can, longer if you can, just so you can start giving the good in the world a chance in your nervous system against all of the natural intake it does of negative and scary and dangerous things. Okay. So one is just to take in the good so you can start to rewire your nervous system to alert for and feel the balance of good versus dangerous in the world. The other thing is, by taking in the good and noticing what you were doing and where you were and who you were with when you felt real resonance and real peace and calm and grace, you can begin to carve out your own go-to rituals for making yourself feel good. And those are things that you can always go back to. You can kind of hide in your heart or in your notebook and always go back to at times when you're feeling stressed or feeling worried or feeling your mind is racing. Like, I have a very, I think, elaborate and probably time-consuming for most people daily routine. But I do it and I continue to practice it now for years because it gets me. I get up in the morning and I immediately come into the world with a momentum around feeling good. So it's much, much harder for me to be knocked off track by events or headlines or whatever. To the extent that you can start to carve out your own sort of go-to ritual or routine, even if it's very short, even if it's watching a 1-minute video or just, writing a list of things that you appreciate, that will really help. And the final strategy I have is to write it out. Write it out. I have a daily free writing practice that's very similar to Julia Cameron's morning pages. She calls them a spiritual windshield wiper. I call them an emotional windshield wiper that I have access to every single day. I just get up in the morning and write. And at any time in the day or evening when I am stressed or super worried or I have a lot of things on my mind that I just need to integrate and I want to get them out of my head, I put them on my pages. And that practice of daily writing, it can be a lifesaver. It is a game changer. It also has all these other benefits. Tim Ferriss calls it the free therapy. I think your complexity and clarity of your thinking will change and evolve if you do this practice. But it can be challenging for people to build the practice. So part of so I run 3 30-day writing challenges for conscious people, leaders, and people just living conscious lives. And many people use the writing challenge as a container in which they create their daily writing practice. You're definitely invited to the next one. So those are my thoughts on how to stop your mind from racing. One of which is counterintuitively to let it be okay if it does actually race. Over time, I think if you practice these things, you'll try on what works for you, you'll discard what doesn't, and you'll find that you have much more control over your thoughts than you think.